host. And so, as we all know, March 8 was Women's Day. And the theme for this year and the topic for this panel is embracing equity. So, we'll be talking about equity at the workplace, equity in different fields, and what the future workplace, could possibly look like. So, to discuss this, we have with us Garima Das, who is Associate Director for Sales at PayU, Abhinaya Iyer, Product Manager at Wibmo, and Kavita Joshi Krishnan, who is Sales Director at PayU. Ladies, welcome and thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Ambika. Thanks. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
So, let's start right at the basics. Let's start with the concept of workplace equity, equity versus equality. The aim of the Women's Day campaign was to point out that equal opportunities aren't always enough, right? People start from different places. So, real inclusion and real belongingness require more equitable action, right? So, my question to the panel is, what do you think is the difference between equity and equality, and why do we need equity?
Okay. So, Ambika, just to add on to what you just said, there's this concept. To be very honest, specifically the concept of equality is to a large extent, I would say, not properly understood. The first thing that is there is equality and equity are two very different concepts. I would say equity is a means to achieve equality. To be very honest. So, you know, what is equality? Equality is basically giving equal opportunities to everyone, you know. But when
Right.
does that really work? That really works in scenarios where our starting lines are the same, right? Which normally doesn't happen. To be very honest, if we look at it around us, because of the kind of, I would say social norms, policies, processes, it's never the same. Equity gives us that extra edge while we use equity, which is basically giving people opportunities, that little extra to achieve the same common outcome. That's precisely what equity is all about.
Absolutely. Because we all do start at very, like you said, different starting points. We are not all at zero. Some are here, some are here. So,
No, just to add to this, I think specifically being a woman, we shoulder a lot more responsibilities back home personally, right? So
absolutely.
equity plays an extremely important role because then if our workplace is accommodating, gives us that freedom, that opportunity to strike the balance between work, thrive and grow, because we also have equal aspirations, right? Just like men around us, right?
Absolutely.
But providing that atmosphere, right, so that each and every individual can thrive equally, right, can actually go pursue their goals, their aspirations, while even striking a balance, or I will say fulfilling all responsibilities that one may want to shoulder, right? That for me is equity, right? So while there are positions open for all, but going that extra mile to provide that individual that space, that environment, that comfort for them to thrive at work goes a long way. Yeah.
I think it's all been very well put by Garima and Kavita. Not sure exactly additionally what is the value I can add to this definition. But this is something I really wanted to showcase because this, I think, beautifully captures
Yeah.
what is the distinction we are looking at with respect to equality and equity.
Correct.
In a sense, this is an encapsulation of what we've just discussed. And in a sense it is a simple representation, but here I think what really matters, and I personally had this discussion at home prior to this meeting. My husband, folks coming from very similar background, and this understanding is very nuanced, that it's very difficult to explain to people that everybody is equal, and equity is where we are trying to, as everybody beautifully put it, ensure that the starting line for everyone is the same. And addressing this becomes extremely important because what I hear from the other side, and I think maybe we can wait for the subsequent sections to actually uncover this, but is I think strive getting that understanding of equality that is expected, not just equality in opportunity, but equality in the outcome that you potentially can derive. That is what we are striving towards, and it's absolutely put right that equity is a means to do that.
Absolutely. And also, I think at an organizational level, right, there's many, very practical ways of implementing it. For example, we and a lot of companies, right, do diversity hiring. It's a fairly done thing. But how many companies, across industries are actually looking at equitable opportunities for advancement, right? It's not just about entry level and hiring, but advancement or wage equity. How much transparency is there about wages? Or, I mean, even something as small as incentives, right? Not everybody can do travel based, alcohol based incentives, event centered incentives, right? Maybe something a little more flexible, financial recognition or something like that. Easy to implement if we are able to, as long as we consider that we need equity, right, over equality.
No, no,
So,
I absolutely agree with you, Ambika, that this equation needs to be looked at workplace holistically, right? In terms of breaking the glass ceiling, giving opportunities for women leaders to climb up the ladder, right? Having parity across salary, incentives, components, right? And providing a fair I think, atmosphere or environment at workplace for
absolutely.
women to, yeah, go that extra mile. Yes.
Absolutely. Because
Yeah.
the truth is that in most workplaces, in most industries, right, especially the lucrative ones, it is the fact that they are male dominated, which brings me to my next question, right? What role do you think men play in building workplace equity for their women colleagues, and what do you think they can be doing to make it a more equitable workplace?
um, Again, going back to the discussion that I had, because I did my own personal dipstick study before coming to this panel discussion. Understanding is there is a huge gap in understanding where is equality versus where is equity, and this is beautifully elicited even by a very naive question asked by my very intelligent husband, actually a dumb question asked by my intelligent husband, where he was asking this question, saying ki, you are asking for, let's say, menstrual leave. Cool. You're saying menstrual leave needs to be given to women. Fair. I, as man, have no problem with it. But why there? Why only there? I, as I mean, a man can have a very low immune system. Does that mean that I should get more sick leaves? You are basically trying to cater to every single person, and because his understanding and definition of equity is, can I personalize the opportunity that I'm giving to every single person so that they all arrive at the common factor? So that is where they are coming from, and hence the immediate knee jerk reaction that they get is, yeah, equality will get aap kya equity, what is this, that a new term that you're talking about? And of course, anytime we bring this up with any men, when you're discussing, this is the first thing that they're going to respond with, facetiously or realistically. So I think having that understanding clearly to them, saying that, see, understand equity is where you are bringing it either in the form of a policy, and while you cannot address it at every singular granular person, because that is where you will look at it from a use case, case by case perspective, but you are aware that a good demographic of your office population are a part of minority. It could be either women, it could be LGBTQ, it could be any kind of minority section, and they come with their own set of baggages. If you could frame a policy which is going to make their life equal, I mean, comfortable. Nobody is trying to frame a policy making your life bad about, I mean, worse off, but they're just trying to make their life easier, just so that both of you are on the even playing field to arrive at this common or a similar looking outcome. It is not especially particularly targeted to just make women's life easier, which intuitively somewhere just makes their life miserable. But having that definition very clearly told to them and aligning with them on that definition is extremely important, because it's very easy to lose this definition or nuance in translation.
Absolutely.
So that is what.
No, I would say well said about, Abhinaya there. But I just have one additional point here. To be very honest, men play a very crucial role. we will not be able to achieve equity without men understanding, right? The whole concept will not exist if men don't understand what equity is and practice it in their day-to-day lives. And how would they practice it precisely? It's not just it's bosses or senior folks understanding. In order to provide equity in workplace, you just don't need to facilitate, you know I would say, this probably the female, but also the male. Because I'll give you a very simple example of what happened during the time when I had just joined back from my maternity. And I think that time maternity was only 3 months. So I had a small kid right at daycare. Me going to the daycare, picking him up at 7 o'clock was understood. Okay. It was a part, it was understood well, and it was allowed. But there were days where, because of the profile that I was in, I was not able to. And in those exceptional cases, when my husband had to do the same thing in his office, it was not understood. You
Right.
imagine, so it's a very small thing. These people are actually, I would say, because of which we women are able, or anybody for that matter, are able to achieve that equity. People don't talk about them, they undermine them, be it at their workplace, be their colleagues. So if we really need that environment, we need to appreciate those efforts, not just that we take in organizations, for the female workforce, but also what we take for the male workforce as well. Okay, then only they will be able to understand the concept, when they will be able to practice it in their own homes, to be very honest. If See, we are talking about our organization, but this concept needs to extend to society as a whole, right? So when an organization allows, you to ensure that you are able to maintain that work life balance, when if you need to leave early to manage something at home, it's understood, that he's a male, but he has equal responsibilities at home, and he's allowed to leave, with that sensitivity that is given to him and appreciated for it. Then only he'll be able to create that environment in home. Otherwise, we'll be defined to the concept of equity in certain organizations alone, and we will never be able to achieve this as a broader concept. So men do play a very important role.
Absolutely. It's about, aware. I think what both of you are saying is, on the same page, more or less. It's creating awareness and creating an enabling environment for both women as well as the men who are allies, and part of the ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I
Absolutely.
absolutely in sync with what Kavita and Abhinaya are saying, right? We need to consider men and women as joint owners, right? Right now, I think the society has a very different view about how a woman role should be at a personal level, and how she's expected to um, achieve or perform at a professional level, whereas men are considered more outgoing, more somebody who will thrive to go out, right? Bread earners, so to say, still in the society, right? So that concept itself needs to change. And I think I absolutely agree that it needs to, I mean, we need to change things at the grassroots level, right? If in an organization there are opportunities given equally, right, to both men and women, right? And the circumstances and the demands and the opportunities cater to everyone, right, depending on their needs and requirements, that's when I think the equality will also lead to equity at workplace.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, but it's true. We need an enabling environment for pretty much everyone. And I think that's
Yeah.
like big thing that we are looking at through an equitable workplace. But the reality is that we do see discrepancy in different fields, right? So Abhinaya, you are a product manager. What is your take on women in tech and women in tech fields in India? Just tell us a little bit about the progress that women have made, and if you think that there is anything concrete that can be done. What are your views on this?
Uh, yes, certainly progress and headway has been made, and I think there was some. We did some, particularly for this panel discussion. I also did some number crunching to see what is statistics saying, what is data saying with respect to this. So the good thing right now is that in India, as per a McKinsey study, 34% of Indian tech workforce is constituted by women. And in fact, instinctive reaction is, man, that's a lot from where we were. But the truth is, it is actually lesser than the global average, which is 47%. And the reason for that is, if you look at it from the overall career hierarchy for a woman, maximum drop off happens between the age of 25 to 35K beach mein. And this I've understood from a lot of company hiring people, the CXO, CTOs of the companies that I've spoken to in different contexts. All of them are saying that in tech, hiring for a mid to a junior level role is a cakewalk because capabilities bhar bhar ke pada hai. Everybody is enabled today to code. Everybody has the basic understanding of tech, have the aptitude for it more than anything else. Women have equal amount of aptitude, and we see it today. And we are hiring. We go to campuses. We see the percentages that are getting filled. That is not the blocker. We're doing extremely well over there, in fact. And I see that somewhere equality is reached there. Where we are lagging is when we go up the hierarchy. How are we going to protect them from that drop off? The drop off that comes in the form of a mat leave, the drop off that could come in any other additional domestic chores or forms. And I've heard people say that, man, because I have a diversification requirement that my organization has put, I know I want to hire women, but the pool is now just really weaning out when you go further top. And that is testament to even the kind of culture, I mean, the percentage of women that we have today, even in our organization in tech. Sure, we are making headway. Sure, we are at least becoming self-aware of it. If nothing else, to begin with, we have taken that baby steps. But even today, how many senior directors are there in product or in tech or in engineering or as a solution architect? And वहाँ पे I think although capability की कमी नहीं हो at that point, but somewhere the aptitude and the willingness and the right pool of people need to increase at that level. And that can happen only when we are fostering that situation for them, where they don't have to take a choice between their aspiration and the reality, if you will.
The other responsibilities, you're not being asked to balance your professional and personal responsibilities. Absolutely, well put. you know so now moving on from the tech field to more of the business part of it. Kavita, Garima, you are both sales experts. My question to you is, what attributes do you feel women typically bring to work and to business? Do you think women bring different perspectives and or different approaches? And also, I want to hear how you feel this translates into business impact. This difference.
Okay. Kavita, you want to go first? Sorry, I can't hear you, Kavita. Yeah.
Kavita,
Go ahead, Garima. No worries.
Okay. So
I'll
here I have a very biased opinion being a woman, right? I'm all gung-ho about how we are also equally or more contributing at workspace, right? I think I have a long list, but if I were to maybe restrict to top three or four, I think women are more empathetic, right, at workplace. So when it comes to communication, I think we are like an open door policy. We can actually communicate with anyone and everyone across various levels in the organization, right? Second, I will say is that we are very patient as an intrinsic nature. A woman is much more patient, I would go ahead and say. So, which also makes us much better listeners, I will say, than men, right? Which in turn, I believe, helps us make much more informed decision, right?
Right.
So that's the second point. And third, if I were to say, is that I think we again, one of our intrinsic nature being that we want to manage all, so we are huge multitaskers, and right, and can figure out actually quick fixes to get work done in a shorter span of time, right? Which again, I think works wonderfully well both at home or at work. Right. So if you are looking for some quick fix solutions or quick delivery, right, or manageable tasks, then I think, yeah, woman is the person to go to. Yeah. Yes.
Kavita.
No, no. So I think brilliantly put, Garima. So I think couple of, just probably elaborating on her points and, what value we add. So probably, one very important thing which Garima also highlighted is, when women basically bring empathy to business. Okay, a lot of empathy. And how does that happen? Because, due to the life experiences that a woman has, okay, no other reason precisely, they are more empathetic listeners, if I, have to put it that way. And this attribute actually helps them to be, those natural mediators in time of conflicts, which kind of gives them that edge specifically in case of leadership roles, because this is one of the challenges we see leaders in today facing. Apart from that, again, multitasking, definitely. And that actually enables the male workforce to learn a lot from them, because, that's one dimension, apart from all the other great attributes that they have. That's one dimension that they need to learn, because this multitasking does not just help them in work, but also in their personal life. So I think these are two aspects which is very critical. And it's normally seen, and if you look at examples, workplaces where you generally have more women, they are more solution oriented, or they are more stable organizations. You see employees staying there, more. That's one. And someone just rightly said, 1 plus 1 can become 3, but that 3 can only happen when that 1 and 1 is different. You need to have the two different approaches, you know to get to better solutions, to get to better approaches to look at things specifically from a longer term. I think contribution from both is needed, and I think that's probably my take on this.
Absolutely. Because I think, we see companies which are, making and marketing products for both men and women, right? So, we already have men on the teams, right? But it's important to have women in the team, right off the bat, from conceptualizing to designing to marketing to selling the product, whether,
Yes.
what product or service or whatever it is, right? And yeah, like I think, like you both said, having a very diverse diverse viewpoints actually, I think, just helps. It's better decision making. Sure, it can take a little longer maybe to reach the decision,
Yeah.
but in the end, at least you get to the right decision, right? Which I expect is what's actually important, and relevant. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think we have a good take on what our workplace today looks like. We've discussed a lot on that. My next question is about, your thoughts on the future, future workplace and future workplace equity. What do you think that Gen Alpha women, and that is, kids who are born in the decade of 2020s, what are these women going to face or maybe not face, when they enter the workplace in 2040? Maybe there's something that we face that they don't, or vice versa. What's your take on it?
Here's hoping that at that time there is already a convergence of equity and equality at that point. The example that I showed, right? Instead of having different ladders, how about have the tallest ladder for everybody? So here's hoping that could actually come into play. And I think also more importantly, the minute we become more equitable, equality in the larger scheme of things, hopefully in the next 2 decades, we see that everything turns objective, and there is no. I think the less and less subjectivity that we remove from the way we interact with our workplace, and we're just absolutely objective in our approach. Um, Somewhere I think our biases will go away, or hopefully that by then we don't have such biases, because of the fact that we are a lot more objective, a lot more just oriented towards work, and there is absolutely no notion of any gendered biases or any different biases per se. And it's a beautiful example that recently when we were doing a shortlisting done, we actually had a look at the entire CVs without absolutely having no notion of the name or email ID or where that person has come from, purely starting from education experience, work experience, so on. That is how basically we were sitting and evaluating that gender. And I think that would be the end state, right? If that gets institutionalized in a state where you're not looking at gender at all, it's not a consideration at all.
Absolutely. And I think some forces, which I'm hoping will help. A lot of scholars are saying that, as we have more virtual work or hybrid work, maybe a very international workforce, like it's not necessary that an Indian company has just Indians. It's a workforce. Workers from all over the company world are participating, right? And we're looking at skills rather than background, and maybe more, contractual workers coming into the workforce. I was thinking that hopefully this might actually mean that employers are more flexible, in terms of looking at skills rather than gender. Here's hoping.
And I absolutely
No, no,
agree. Sorry. Yeah.
no, no. Go ahead, Garima, please.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree, Ambika, and even with Abhinaya, right? I think with Gen Alpha, one thing I can vouch is since I have young kids, they will definitely have a bigger risk appetite, right? Which I feel women at our age still are not too open to go for that last mile. We still think twice or evaluate all options before taking any risk. Yeah, I think with the world becoming more virtual, more tech driven, right, and the kind of space they are growing up already online, already doing a lot of virtual activities, learning, even working on their skills at this age. I think which we hardly started. We spent a lot of time just playing, observing, while these guys have a different knack to observing things, picking up. Skills, etc. Right? So I believe that the risk appetite will be much more, and they won't shy away from globetrotting or picking up opportunities at any part, right? Virtually, personally, anything. Yeah. So yes, I think that will be an exciting time for sure.
And looking forward to it. Kavita, what's your take on this?
Okay, so I think I pretty much agree with what both of them said, and I think that's pretty much the case. So if you look at today, the kids at the time probably when they are there, and even today, I think they are pretty much connected always, right? So we are probably by the time when the Gen Alpha moves to the workspace mode, right? I think they'll be always connected. So I don't think organizations would have to evolve much more rapidly, and I think they are also doing where I think a lot of these things, the first thing that we are talking about, specifically in terms of equity, which is flexibility, will not be a challenge
Yeah.
because it would automatically get addressed. Reason being is that, with things moving a lot virtual, with things, moving out of national geographic boundaries and, moving internationally, I think they will have a lot of scope in terms of what we are finding challenges to, right, to adjust,
Right.
but what we are talking about, to be very honest, is still the very few privileged who are in that world right now, right, who are getting all these privileges. We are talking about our kids, but a large part of the population which is still not seen that, or still not privileged to what we are going through. That is what we is up to us on how we build things better from them. So say for example, specifically in terms of, so I just came across something which was very striking and I really liked it. There are a lot of stereotypes still that we need to break for the next generation, to be very honest. And to be very honest, Mercedes Benz, I'm just quoting the company, has a scholarship program specifically for students of mechanical engineering, girl students.
Right.
Okay. Now, why? Because there's a stereotype that mechanical engineering is a field for boys, right? So this is a very small step that they are taking. But to be very honest, these small steps is what is going to define how things are going to be for the next generation. That's something which is very crucial. And kids today, if we look at it, specifically boys, get a lot, and girls as well, get a lot influenced by the kind of role models that are created at home, right? So how we are treating, I would say, equality, or the concept of equity at home to build that environment of equality is what is going to precisely shape how the Gen Alpha is going to face the world. So I think we all need to do a lot there. But otherwise, I think the way I think Garima and Abhinaya already highlighted, technology does and is playing, a very good role, specifically in providing the flexibility, which today I think a lot of us have a challenge with.
Absolutely. And I think we are also connected, right? I mean, when I was growing up, something could be happening in America and I wasn't aware, right? Like
Yeah.
so many movements that have happened, whether it's women's movements or other movements, and we're getting to hear about it like, all real time. which is so helpful, right? We didn't think that, you know, I mean, case in the one that's coming to mind, you know, is Me Too. But it was happening in real time, and it just picked up globally, right? So even if you're not somebody who is necessarily an advocate, but then you hear about this, that in its own way is generating awareness, it's generating consciousness, and young kids are getting exposed to it so fast, right? So you know, it'll, I think, be difficult for them to insulate and not like like keep away and keep in isolation and just adhere to very traditional norms. So hopefully, here's hoping that's what technology
Yeah, and
actually is.
I think if I were just to add one more point, picking on what Kavita said, actually, I think organizations for Gen Alpha will have to work a little more harder, right? Because they will be very demanding for sure. See, so I'm sure the organizations all need to have more perks, right? To ensure that they value the talent, they nurture the talent, right? Apart from just giving equal opportunities. So that I think it is another area where at org level, I think companies need to work and be prepared for the next generation, right? Because the kind of skill sets that they will have and the kind of risk taking capacity, right? And I just can link that with Mercedes. I think that's a very very smart move, right? Because that way you're also building loyalty and talent for yourself, right? Not
Absolutely.
just providing an opportunity. So it's like doing both the things at one go: a CSR, providing opportunities, and at the same time building talent for oneself. So yeah, so I think more such initiatives should shape up as the world evolves. Yeah, because I'm sure flexibility is something that both men and women will also want equally going ahead. I think one example has been the COVID times when we were all working in a virtual scenario,
Yeah.
right? And the work from home culture was across for all organizations, all departments, all segments, right? So, yeah, that's an area I think the organizations will also need to look for and
Sure.
evolve. Yeah.
Absolutely, and mostly even as men, there's more acceptance, hopefully, for Gen Alpha men to
Yeah.
acknowledge that yes, we are equal partners at home. I think yes, organizations will be hopefully look at giving more flexibility, more equity. Absolutely. So it's been a very, very interesting discussion. And frankly, I think we can go on about this topic,
Yeah, I just thought of a new point.
Sorry?
I just thought of a new point.
Please,
I mean,
please.
seriously, this topic can really go on. No, just wanted to add one additional point here that in the future, as much as we're giving, because we are at this point, right, in a sense, equating equity with giving certain set, degree of flexibility to individuals, right? While behaviorally bringing that change is important, I think the other aspect and facet of it, which I don't think we really need to touch upon, is our very fair evaluation of each and every individual entity in terms of their career framework. And simple case and example is two people, man and a woman, both of them are in the same job. And this is a real life example I'm giving you. Women recently just had a baby, and she's come back to workforce now. And in she, because of her requirement, 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock is her time in order to take care of the baby and so on. Both the guys on paper, as per their OKRs, have actually done really like on par. However, because the guy is in office, so he's able to be present, be visible, and be there for ad hoc things, which is unavoidable. So at the end of the day, when it comes to having to, push the other person's career, who are you intuitively going to go towards? Although on paper everybody's OKRs met, everybody is doing everything as required, she's managing fantastically despite coming back immediately after having a kid. But unfortunately, I mean, although equity was given, she was given the flexibility, wasn't to say anything. He was very, very happy to oblige the 3 to 5 part. And she also did deliver, but it did, at the end of the day, uh, didn't give an equitable response, I mean, answer to her career. So that's
That's an
something to keep in
interesting
mind.
perspective. Yeah. I suppose it's not going to be a smooth line, there's going to be a
And
lot
it's
of
not
bumps on
only
the way,
doing
but
that
yeah.
detail, but also evaluating them objectively, like
Yeah.
without having to look at all these distractions or other little nuances, like who's more visible, who's making themselves present, and there are these nuances which we can't get away with, and these are all biases at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Uh, Totally agree with you, Abhinaya. Abhinaya, I'll just take 1 minute to just add a point here. Very well said point. But as I said, right, previously also, what you're saying will happen only when equity, the concept of equity and the understanding just stays with women. That's what I said. It needs to move to men. When you have a longer paternity leaves for men, I'm just giving an example. When they share responsibilities, which are theirs, it's not, just one person. And when they understand that they have an equal role to play in both the places, when we start facilitating environments like those, definitely what you're talking about will not be the case because the person would not need that much of flexibility. The amount of flexibility would be reduced, as well as the example that you gave of the male colleague would probably not be able to give, always that extra hour in office because he will also have that responsibilities at home. And eventually the two will balance out. Eventually the two will be able to, and that's precisely what is needed. So, Ambika, probably I think we've discussed this, but the next time we have a discussion on a similar topic, we would like men to be there because it's a concept
Absolutely.
which is also very important from their perspective, not just from a perspective of a specific gender. you know
Absolutely.
yeah.
Definitely, agree with you that eventually the idea isn't, a lot of people think that, oh, promoting women at the workplace is taking away something from men, which is not the case. That's not what we want. That's not what the goal is here. It's just to actually empower everyone, men as much as women, right?
Yes. Yes.
So absolutely. Very wide range of topics. We covered equity versus equality, the need for male allies, women in very, very different fields, gender dynamics of 2040. So Abhinaya, Garima, Kavita, thank you so much for your time and your views. Abhinaya, amazing stats. The McKinsey study, it was an eye opener. Um, Kavita, I liked that you brought up all the time, and I think a lot of people like that you kept bringing up, the importance of enabling men and, male allies and men being a very, very critical part of this discussion, And Garima, honestly, I just love your very positive, such a positive outlook, on the future of workplace that yes, they will demand, and yes, it's going to be much better, very, very hopeful future.
Yeah,
So
yeah, women will be more demanding for sure in future. Yes,
which is good,
and
which
I
is
think we
actually
should
good.
start now. We should start now.
We should start now. Yeah, definitely, we should. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your time and your views, and audience members, thank you for being part of this discussion.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.